Nope, I need that light on.
Good afternoon, Ladybugs and Yellow Jackets. Welcome to Faye Productions here, and this is this Friday's episode of Author Reads, and I am your host, Fairy Princess Lolly. And today I'm here with author Elizabeth Schechter. And before we jump in and meet Elizabeth, I just want to say thank you all so much for tuning in this Friday. Please, wherever you're watching from, hit the like and subscribe and ring the bell for us. And if you feel so inclined, share on the Twitters and the Facebooks. And thank you so much for that support. Also, I would like to give a shout out to today's show sponsor, which is Starlit Skies Jewelry. And you may have actually seen them here last night on the show, not last night, we're on Friday, on Wednesday on Faye News. What is time in 2020, right?
Oh, good gracious, it's Blur's Day.
Yes, they were here on the show for our author interview and a giveaway of a wire ear cuff, which is what they specialize in making. They make wire elf ears and ear cuffs, earrings that are danglies, and also very amazing for this year, for 2020, they've got these amazing masks that they use henna designs on, and I would really encourage that you guys go and check them out. They are a Renaissance Festival regular from East to West Coast. They travel all over the United States, regular Ren Fair vendors. So please check them out. Their information is going in the low bar. Right now, they have a coupon code in their Etsy store, which is thank you so much 2020. So it's TYSM 2020, and if you use that code when you shop in their store, you will get 20% off of your purchase. So go check them out, give them a like and a follow if you want, and I hope that you like their works. So thank you so much, Starlit Skies, for being our sponsor today. And without further ado, then I bring to you our author today. Welcome, Elizabeth. How are you this afternoon?
Doing good. Not raining for a change here in Florida.
Oh gosh, man, I hope you will pass your rain up here. That's all we want on the West Coast is rain everywhere because it's all on fire.
Yes, I was starting to wonder, are we actually going to be able to do this today? Because I don't know exactly where on the West Coast you are. I just knew you were on the West Coast.
Yes, I am a little bit north of Seattle, and so we're in a relatively safe place up here where I'm at, knock on wood, because I don't want to jinx anything or to tempt 2020. Yes, so we're up here. Right now we're safe, but we're safe from actual fire, but we are not safe and haven't been actually for, I don't know, maybe a little over a week now with smoke in the sky. It's only been in the last couple of days that it started raining, and that has it's had this weird effect where it's sort of tamping down with the smoke and ash, but the result of the rain with all of the heat that is just everywhere in the land and the fires is making it much balmier than I can ever recall having experienced. And I've lived here for most of my fairy life, right? So and it's been balmy in the way that I would imagine Florida being on a good day.
Walking out into a wet wool blanket, yeah, that's our weather.
Yes, and I hate it. So,
yeah.
I've been through Miami once, and I stepped into an air-conditioned place and was shocked at how wet the air was in what was supposed to be a cool place. This is not cool, not by any stretch of the imagination. So that was an experience.
Yeah, normally at this time of year, it rains about this point in the afternoon, but it's not doing it for today.
Didn't you guys just have a hurricane?
It went up the Panhandle. So it was like, I'm on the East Coast. I'm closer. I'm like halfway between Daytona Beach and the Mouse.
Okay.
So I'm on the East Coast of Florida. Mickey Mouse. I'm halfway between Daytona and Disney.
Okay. I'm on
the East Coast. The Hurricane Sally went up through the Panhandle and is now heading for, I think, North Carolina.
Okay. Well, yeah. I hope that it kind of dissipates and runs itself out a little bit before it does any massive destruction. We do not need that, right? So,
Yeah.
well, so Elizabeth, if you will, please introduce yourself to our audience and tell us a little bit about who you are. We know you live in Florida and you're currently dodging hurricanes. What do you write? Give a shout out to, if you have your home conventions or events that you do, give a shout out to your peeps, and let's hear a little bit about you.
Oh, okay. Well, like I said, I live in Florida. I write a variety of heat levels. I made my name as a writer, writing erotic romance, which I'm not going to be reading today. I have just recently, within the past couple of years, started writing new adult fantasy romance. And that's been a lot of fun. That goes up. I've been doing it as a serial on my Patreon.
Oh,
So
you have a Patreon.
Yeah, chapter. I thought I gave you that link. If
no.
I didn't, that was on me.
Well, if you tell me your Patreon right now, I will type it into the comments for everybody. It's patreon.com//
EASCHECHTER.
Okay, there it is. That is now at least in the chat for everybody.
Okay.
Go support Elizabeth. All right, back to you. Go ahead. Continue.
Well, it's been 2 years now. I started writing The Heir to the Firstborn as a serial in my Patreon. 2 years, haven't missed a week. We're on to book 4. Books 1 through 3 are out, but I'm writing book 4, and it started as an experiment in, stunt writing, what I call it.
What is stunt writing?
Stunt writing, everything happens in real time.
Oh.
I write the chapters, they go up.
Okay.
Very minimal editing, very minimal everything. Everything has happened in real time on the Patreon, from the world building to the writing to everything. And my patrons get the raw files. They get the raw creation. Every week they get that chapter. And then at the end, when it's, when the book is done, it's edited and it's put out as, a bound book or as an ebook. And then they get their copies of the ebooks.
That is cool.
So they could see how the book develops and how the book changes between the first draft and the final.
Yes, that is quite fascinating. I just have to compliment you. Going 2 years and not missing a single week for doing this is an impressive stretch. Yeah, but it really is. It's hard to do, and it's hard to keep up with that sort of thing. I mean, that's why NaNoWriMo exists. So that people can get in the habit of, say, writing every day. And so I think that it's, bully on you for doing that, right?
Well, I've been a professional writer now for 10 years. This is my day job. I get up, I make sure that everybody else is ready and situated, and at this point right now in front of their computers where they need to be for either work or school. And then I sit down and I write, I do my world building, I do my promo, I do my marketing, I do everything that I need to do because this is a business for me. This is my job.
Yes. This all sounds so familiar, to be perfectly honest.
Yes. And it's been a little bit harder with, everything, all of this.
Yes.
But sometimes the writing is the touchstone that keeps me going. I have to get my chapter in. I have to get this written, so that I need to focus on that, and I need to focus on the romance, because I know that's going to be happily ever after.
Right. Yes.
Everything's going to be okay for them. Out here, maybe not so much, but my characters, everything's going to be fine at the end when we get there.
Well, part of the purpose of even writing things like that is to step out of all of the things that we're experiencing right now and give our brains and everything that's going on a little bit of a breather. Yes. Right? And go engage in something that is, enjoyable and not on fire or under a hurricane.
Not on fire, under a hurricane. Just absolutely insane. It's like, I'm sorry, if I wrote the book of 2020 and handed it into an editor, they'd hand it back to me and say, this is just too ridiculous. because fiction has to make sense.
Right? It's the truth is stranger than fiction, as they say. It's funny because I've taken to telling people now that whenever they're just something, they're like, and today I got in a car wreck, and I'm like, oh, sounds like you rolled a 20/20 for today. Not a natural 20, a 20/20.
No.
It's terrible.
We're going to have to change that whole idiom about 20/20 vision after this year, because nobody's going to watch it.
Yeah, right. I'm curious, how did you get into doing this sort of serial writing in the way that you're doing this? What was the inspiration? Or you're the first author that I've had that is doing something like this, so I find it quite fascinating.
Well, I'm not the first author to do it, and one of the people who does it regularly and has been doing it for like 10, 15 years, something like that, is Cecilia Tan, who's a friend of mine. She writes erotica, and she's been doing Darren's Guitar Chronicles for 10 or 15 years or something like that. They're up to like 11 volumes of collected, chapters. And it's something we talked about for a while, and she had kind of nudged me towards Patreon.
Mm-hmm.
And, you should try this, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, shove. And it was okay, well, if I do a Patreon, what am I going to do? And then I had the idea for this series that's so outside of the box of what I usually was doing at that point that I knew I needed a different venue for it. So it's like, okay, well, if I have this idea and I have all of this, I'm going to have to do all of the world building. So I got a wild hair.
You got a wild hair. Well, and it's convenient too, because
and it's
Patreon working. Yeah, Patreon sends it right to your inbox, so you don't have to go hunting somebody's blog down and read it and keep up and all the stuff and things. And so tell us a little bit, if you will, before we jump into you reading, tell us a little bit, if you will, what you're going to be reading to us today, and give us some context some surrounding context for what we're about to hear.
Okay. Well, Heir to the Firstborn basically came about because I had this really wild idea, partially rooted in one line from Fiddler on the Roof.
What is the line?
Where Tevye looks at his daughters and says, a bird can fall in love with a fish, but where would they live?
On the back of a dolphin.
Well, what we have here in the Heir to the Firstborn universe, we have 4 races that are elemental based.
Okay.
And our Heir tribe, and there was a real challenge at the beginning to really keep it from sounding like Avatar: The Last Airbender. Because if you're going to do anything elemental based, it's going to sound like Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Avatar does not have exclusive rights to the elements of this planet.
I know. I realize that, but they did it so well.
That's fair.
So in our Heir tribe, the men and women all have wings.
Okay.
The water tribe are mer. They are merfolk, and they shift. So I have my shifters, and my main viewpoint character in Written in Water, which I'll be reading and introducing him today. He is part water, part earth. And as and one of the lines he says early on in the reading is, he's as much earth as water, and therefore has no real part in either.
It makes him clay.
They actually use his water relatives call him Mudborn.
Mudborn.
Which, one of the characters later on goes, I don't like that. That's mean.
Oh, I mean, it sort of is. Okay, Mudman.
And then we have our Earth tribe, who are primarily farmers and healers.
Okay.
And then the Fire tribe are smiths.
Oh, cool.
They are smiths, and they find visions in the smoke from the volcano under which they live. So you have
Cool.
folk dancers who I really got into flow toys at the beginning of this, and there's this one particular flow toy that looks like an S-shaped stave, and I can't think of the name of it right now.
I do not know what you're talking about, and I'm pretty familiar with flow toys. So I have a wand and a poi, and I like flow art.
I've been working on learning poi and trying not to hit myself with them again.
Yes, don't do fire first. That is my recommendation.
No,
if you still hit yourself in the head, don't do fire first.
I still knocked my glasses off the first time I did. But in doing, it's like, okay, how do these smoke dancers find their visions? And they do it through trance dancing. They do it through using these, what they call smoke blades, which are their tool for catching the visions, but it's also their primary weapon.
Smoke blades.
Yes.
I like it. I like the feels that I'm feeling coming off of this. So
because I am a frustrated anthropologist, my college advisor would not let me do a triple major. I was in English in secondary.
Why would they stop you if you can do the thing? Why would they stop you? Like, no, don't learn more.
English in secondary education, and I took a cultural anthropology class and went, oh my God, this is neat. I want to, it just spoke to me. The whole finding the rituals and the rites and everything behind and all of that foundation for all of these cultures. And I went to my advisor and said, what do I need to do to have like a triple major? And he looked at me like I was nuts. So I refer to myself as a frustrated anthropologist.
Aww.
So one of the things that I do when I do world building is I create the mythology.
Cool.
So that's one of the first things I'm going to read for you is the creation myth that goes with Heir to the Firstborn.
Okay.
Which is perma-free every place but Amazon. Amazon will not let me set it as free. Now, if you complain about it, if you go to Amazon and you want to download it, you can price match it to Barnes & Noble or to Smashwords or to anywhere else that it is free. They will finally give it to you free. They just won't let me set it as free.
That's so weird.
It's very frustrating because I can, go in and tell them, I want this to be free. And they'll do it, but then after about a week and a half, they'll change it back. No, I want it to be free. It's free everywhere else.
That is very strange. So also, just for you guys watching at home, the links for those are actually in the description and the low bar, depending on where you're watching from. So if you're interested in doing that, you can do that now. Yes, it's also going in the ticker, but you should be able to go and click on those before, during, or after the show. I guess you can't do it before the show because before the show is in the past, but let's not get into time travel here. And I'm going to turn this over to you now, Elizabeth, so you can read for us.
All right.
Oh, one more thing. Can I say one more? I forgot. Yes, those of you watching at home, if you are new and just joining us for the first time and are unfamiliar with how we do this, please put your questions into the comments, and we will take those questions while she's reading, and then after she's done, we will put those. We'll pose questions to her that she may answer. Okay, now it's your turn.
All right. Worlds begin.
This is terrible.
World's end.
Sorry. I'm not on mute, am I?
No, you're not. All right.
I dropped a thing in the background. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. My headdress fell off, and I was like, "This is terrible." And then I did that right when you started talking. I'm so sorry, Richard. Forgive me, please, madam. I am on mute now, and I am taking questions from the audience. Oh boy.
Okay. Worlds begin. Worlds begin. Worlds end. Worlds begin again. So it is with worlds. The world Adavar began, lush and green and alive, and the maiden goddess was pleased. She walked the face of the new world, studying creation. She sang with the birds, swam with the great water cats and the dolphins. She ran with the deer and the great gray wolves. She explored the caves beneath the mountains and watched the heart of the world burn, delighting in the antics of the tiny fire mice. Then she returned to the surface and realized that throughout all of this new creation, there was no one like her. There was no one to sing with the birds or swim with the water cats. No one to run with the deer or watch the fires at the heart of the world. She was alone. There was no one to share her world with her. The maiden pondered this as she lay in the soft meadows and passed into sleep. In her sleep, she dreamed of her love for this new world and her desire for someone to share it. And such was the power of that dream and of her desire that the world responded. Wake, the world called. Wake and come to the high places hidden between the sea and the stars, and there you shall find what you seek. The maiden woke, and heeding the call of the world that she loved, she searched for the high places hidden between the sea and the stars. For 10 months she searched, and her belly swelled like the silver moon. Finally, she found the hidden fields, and as she reached her destination, the waters of her womb burst, flowing down the mountains to the sea. And in the hidden fields, the maiden bore the firstborn, the eldest daughter. Maiden no longer, the mother rejoiced in the life that her love for the world had created. She named the child Axia in honor of the world that sired her. The mother and her daughter lived in peace for many years, until one morning, Axia went to her mother and said, "I have dreamed of people who are like us, but who are not like us. People of air and of water, of the earth and of the fire. They live in the cliffs over the sea, and in the sea, and in the caves overlooking the sea, and all along the ocean's shore. We must go and find them." The mother was confused and told her daughter that there were no such people. But Axia insisted, and the two left their home and went down the mountains toward the sea. And there they found people. Not many, but people. Where there had been none before. There were people of the air who sang with the birds and who flew through the air on great feathered wings. There were people of the water with long tails and gills who swam with the dolphins and the water cats and who changed to walk like men on the land. There were people of fire who harnessed those fires in forges and turned the gifts of the earth into wondrous creations. And there were people of the earth who brought forth food from the land and who had healing in their hands. They greeted the mother and Axia with great joy, calling Axia Firstborn and oldest sister. The mother looked at these people, these living embodiments of her dreams, and asked, "Where have you all come from?" It was Adavar who answered her. The world rumbled and spoke. "These are our second-born children. I have created them from your dreams and from the waters of your womb to populate the world. From them shall be born all the races of men." The mother and Axia tarried among the people, spending time with each of the tribes. And in each tribe there was one who became close to Axia, and who chose to leave their people and follow where Axia went. From the fire tribe came Neris, who courted Axia by crafting roses made from silver and gold. From the air tribe came Liara, who taught Axia to call birds to her hand and who sang to rival nightingales. From the earth tribe came Mika, merry and laughing. Last, from the water tribe came Aben, quiet and thoughtful and ever at Axia's side. And so they lived. The tribes looked to Axia and the mother for guidance, and to those of their own number who counseled Axia so that they might have a voice. And the mother was pleased to see how her children had grown, and returned to the hidden places between the sea and the stars. Years passed, and a small group came seeking the mother. At their front was a young woman, quiet and thoughtful, and with Axia's sparkling eyes. The mother welcomed them and asked their purpose. "I am the firstborn of the firstborn," she said to the mother. "My name is Elaine, and my mother has sent me to you so that you might never know loneliness." A temple grew in the fields where a mother had once raised a daughter, and the place came to be known as the mother's womb. Over time, it became traditional for the heirs of the firstborn to come to the temple, to find which of them would be chosen to lead their people when the time came. And it also became tradition for the heir to choose their companions, one from each of the tribes, as Axia did at the beginning. Worlds begin, worlds end, worlds begin again. So it is with worlds. The world begins. Now that's the creation myth. Let me introduce you to Avon, who is our focal point, our focal character in Written in Water. Little history between this and this. We have 25 years before this book starts, the Firstborn is overthrown by someone who thought that he should have been chosen by the mother. 3 of the 4 companions were in the palace. They escaped. Avon is the child of 2 of these companions. He has no idea who his parents were or what's going on land. He's never been there. So let's introduce you to Avon. Avon's world consisted of 4 constants: his parents, their canoe, his water cat, and the sea. Occasionally, there might be visits to his extended family, but they were so infrequent that they might as well never have happened at all. Truly, when his mother did insist on these rare visits, Avon couldn't wait to be away. His grandmother, his aunts, and his cousins all tended to look down their noses at him, and he'd heard the whispered epithets more than once. Mudborn, they called him, because his father wasn't Water Tribe, but Earth. Their disdain made no sense to Avon, and it completely infuriated his mother. So they lived away from the rest of the tribe, sailing to meet them perhaps twice a year, mostly for trade. Sometime soon, Avon hoped, one of the women of the Water Tribe might look past his bloodline and speak to his mother about him. Then she would ask him to build a canoe with her, to be her husband and start a family of his own. It was past time, really. He was, after all, nearly 25. And if you ignored his father, his bloodline, one of the oldest in the Water Tribe. He could trace his descent back to the man he'd been named for, Aben, one of the husbands of Axia, the firstborn. But Aben had been one of the first of the Water Tribe, favored of the daughter of a goddess. His distant grandson, Avon, was Mudborn. Beneath the waves, Avon had his mother's waterborne gills and the silver and pearl scales from his hips to his dorsal fins. But he also had his father's earthborn hazel eyes, and his father's earthborn healing abilities. He was as much a part of the land as he was of the sea, and so had no real place in either. Were the Earth Tribe lands anything at all like the little shelter island where their canoes currently rested, waiting for him to return with the long seaweed ropes they needed for repair? Were the storms there like the ones on the water? The one that had driven them to the beach had lasted 3 days, the worst storm he could remember. Avon considered what a storm might be like, and then finally decided he really had no idea. Their island took 10 minutes to walk across, from the rocky beach to the cliffs overlooking the sea. Twice that to walk the length of it, and an hour to walk all the way around the perimeter. Surely storms inland must be different. How? He shrugged, adjusted the coils he'd already cut where they crossed his chest. Enough to repair the deck and the shelter? He thought so. And, he thought as he looked toward the light dappling the surface above him, he'd been down here a long time. His father would be worrying. He flipped his tail and shot like an arrow through the surface, through ever-brightening waters until he breached the surface, arcing through the air and diving back down into the water. He surfaced again and swam toward the rocks that jutted out into the deep water. There was a place where the rocks had worn into natural handholds, and he grabbed onto them, pulling himself out of the water and sprawling on the warm, water-worn rocks. He felt his gills closing, the first sign of his change back. For a moment, his chest felt tight, until his body remembered that he could breathe air as well as water. He took a long, deep breath and let it out, slipped the coil of seaweed over his head, then pillowed his head on it as he lay back and looked up at the clouds. He closed his eyes and sighed, listening to the wind and the water, and footsteps coming closer. So, deep thinking in deep waters? Avon opened his eyes to see his father, upside down from his angle. He smiled and nodded, but couldn't answer. Speaking would take him another minute or two. His father smiled in response and came over to sit down on the rocks next to Avon. He looked at home in the traditional Water Tribe kilt and vest, but there was grizzled hair on his chest where no water-born male would have hair, and his throat was bare of gill slits. The pendant he never removed rested in the hollow of his throat, a brown and gold stone carved into an elaborate design. Avon's mother had a similar one, carved from some kind of blue stone, but Avon had never seen her wear it. Think you have enough? Avon shrugged one shoulder, then tried to talk, croaking out, maybe. His father grinned. Give it another minute. Where's Melody? Avon nodded toward the water, then whistled, high and shrill. The water in front of the rocks rippled as a long, dark gray, diamond-shaped head popped out of the water. The water cat trilled in response, then disappeared underwater again. She's found a friend, Avon said, his voice closer to normal. She'll be back. A friend, his father repeated, or a meal? Avon laughed. Sometimes it's hard to tell with her. Is Amma back? His father nodded. She brought back a string of moonfish. She's cooking them up and we'll work on the canoe after we eat. Did you hunt while you were below? Avon shook his head, propping himself up on his elbows and looking down at himself. His dorsal fins had retracted, and his scales were smaller. He'd have legs again soon. No, he answered. Fa, tell me about storms when you live on land. His father coughed. Is that what you were thinking about? Not all of it, Avon admitted. What would the storms have been like there? Would it have lasted for days? Probably not, no, his father answered slowly. Going over land slows the storm, weakens it. The more land, the more it breaks the storm down. Now, that's the way it was. I'm not sure how it is now. The storms have been getting worse, and I've not been in Earth Tribe land since before you were born. He reached out and poked Avon in the shoulder. That's not really what you were thinking about for all that time, was it? It's where I ended up, Avon said. He looked up at the clouds. I was wondering about the Earth Tribe. About the rest of me, I guess. You're more water than anything else. A little earth, possibly a little fire. Avon blinked. Fire? My mother was a healer, the same as me, the same as you. And healers in the Earth Tribe sometimes do their healing horizontally. My mother thought my father might have been fireborn, but she might have been wrong. Avon glanced at his father, saw the scowl across his face. That bothers you? If it's true, then his father stopped. It makes no difference. Not to me, nor to your mother. He paused, then softly murmured. Oh, I see. Your grandmother was at you again when we were there last? Aunt Gisa, actually. Avon sat up, resting his hands on his thighs as he flexed his feet, rotating his ankles. The change was finished, and he turned to face his father, folding his legs and resting his elbows on his knees. And the cousins. Fa, I'm never going to be part of them. Because they're closed-minded idiots. Avon looked up and smiled. Amma. His mother smiled as she moved to stand behind his father, resting her hand on his shoulder. I was wondering where you both were. Supper's ready. I only just came back, Amma. Avon answered. I had to change. She nodded. Then she frowned, looking out to sea. Jahan, stand up. Jahan and Avon both scrambled to their feet. What? Jahan asked. Aaliyah, what? In answer, Aaliyah pointed. Avon turned and looked and saw, Amma, is that a ship? He asked slowly. Not a canoe, a ship. Yes, Jahan answered, his voice cold, and it shouldn't be there. He tugged on Avon's arm. Come on, don't forget the ropes. We have work to do, and I want my glass. I thought you said that ships like that didn't sail this far out to sea, Avon asked, following his father as they hurried along the rocks and back toward the beach. That they couldn't navigate like we do. They can't, Aaliyah called from behind him. She hurried to catch up with him. Trading ships like that aren't built for deep water. They never leave sight of land. Your father's right. It shouldn't be here. Jahan was ahead of them, already rummaging through one of the storage compartments built into the decking of their canoe. He pulled out a box and took out a viewing glass. He frowned down at it, then looked at them. Start the repairs. I'll see what I can see, and we can decide which way we're sailing. Avon didn't say anything as his father ran back the way they'd come. Instead, he tossed the coils of seaweed onto the deck and started to work. There were places where the storm had weakened the cording that connected the decking, the forward boom, and the hull floats. It all needed to be replaced before the canoe would be safe to launch. Avon cut the old cording free and started to work. Amma, he said, not looking up from his task, why would we be sailing away from a ship? Because they're not safe, Fen, she answered. Same old answer. Why didn't they visit the inland harbors for trade the way the rest of the water tribe did? Why did they stay so far out to sea? Not just to avoid the family. No, it was because it wasn't safe to do otherwise. Why isn't it safe? Avon cinched the cord he was working on and sat back on his heels. You've never explained it, and I've never asked. But it's something I need to know, isn't it? His mother sighed. It's a conversation your father and I have been putting off for far too long, I think. Can you wait another day? I can wait, Avon agreed. Do I need to wait until it's safe? She smiled at him, but there was sadness in her eyes. Then, if they're sailing this far out, we're not going to be safe. And it's time you knew why. She finished with the cord she was working on. What do you know about the fall of the Firstborn? Avon frowned. Not much. I know it happened before I was born. I know that the man who rules now isn't the Firstborn. But when we were with the family and the cousins were having their lessons, the elders would always stop talking when I was close enough to hear. Aaliyah arched a brow. You never said. Avon shrugged. It didn't seem to be worth the fight, Amma. So what am I missing? Aaliyah looked thoughtful. She took a deep breath and sat up and looked past Avon. Jahan? Avon turned to see his father coming toward them, a frown on his face. It's dead in the water, he said. The mast is gone, and it's listing badly. They must have been caught in the storm. Any survivors? Aaliyah asked. Not that I could see, but that doesn't mean anything. Jahan collapsed the viewing glass and put it back into the case. I'm not sure it's not a trick. Amma and I can go take a closer look, Avon suggested. Jahan scowled. No, I don't want either of you near that ship, not when you're changed. They won't see us, love, Aaliyah said. Jahan just shook his head. You're a fierce fighter on land, Guppy. You saved my life more than once, and I know you fought underwater. But it's that few minutes between that will get you killed, and you're not taking the risk. Not you, and not our boy. Avon blinked, shocked. His mother had fought? Had saved his father's life? He turned to look at his mother and saw the look on her face. She'd gone pale. You said you wouldn't call me that, she said softly. I wanted to be sure you were listening to me, Jahan answered, because you're as stubborn as the sea is deep, and I won't lose you too. Too? Avon repeated. That's part of what we need to explain to you, Van, Aaliyah said, but not now. Let's finish the canoe and go take a look at that ship. I'll stop there.
Okay. Were you going to read from a second book, or are we calling it good?
I think we'll stop there with the Heir to the Firstborn, and maybe we'll delve into something that's not published yet if we have time at the end.
Okay. Well, usually the last thing we do is our drawings. So if you do want to delve into something, now is the time to do that.
Let me pull that up. I've been playing. I was invited into a box set of a whole bunch of authors working in the same themed universe. So we've all got all of the world building is done, and everybody has their own specific characters, and we're all going to be interacting and going to be borrowing each other's characters, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But it's a Wild West paranormal thing. And when we were still throwing things at the wall to see if they would stick, everybody was calling out for their paranormal characters, and who's got the vampire, and who's got the the skinwalker, and who's got the werewolf, and who's got this, and who's got that. And I, because I'm me, I have dibs on the wandering Jew. Well, immortals are paranormal. So,
I suppose that's true.
It's like we've got the wandering Jew and the Elf King's son. Let's just nail down something paranormal in there with it. So this has grown into the first part is done. It's with the people who are putting together the box set. It's John Zebedee and the Heir to Elfland.
So where does a box set get published?
What they're going to be doing is they're going to be
published?
publishing each section of the box set individually and then collecting them and selling it as a themed box set of all of the books that are set in this universe.
Well, that sounds fascinating. So each one of you is writing a whole book that's in this universe. They'll first be published individually, then they'll be published as a
I think that's the order that we're going into. They may be published collectively, and then you can, and then we'll explode the box. But the books are like, 30 to 40,000 words, so they're not huge things.
Kind of a novella.
It's like novella length. And because I'm an overachiever, I'm in the middle of book 2. Because they wouldn't get out of my head.
Well, they're out now, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm still working on them. There's quite possibly going to be a third one.
You say, looking somewhat mischievous over there.
Maybe. My cell phone is ringing, so I need to tell it to stop buzzing at me.
Maybe it's all all of your friends being so excited. There you are on the YouTubes. Fame, fortune. Yes. So
I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying this well enough that even if, something happens and the box set doesn't come off, I'm still going to publish it because it's a lot of fun. And these characters are just, they're whimsical and I enjoy them.
Well, hey, I mean, you wrote it, right? So do the thing.
So there are 2 versions of the Wandering Jew story. There's the punishment story, the punishment version of the story of this is the Jew who renounced Christ on the walk to the crucifixion. And then there's the beloved apostle version of the story, which is what I'm working with, which is at the Last Supper, Christ bids one of the apostles to wait for him to return because this is the person that he loves best.
And so this person is now an immortal and is wandering.
This person is now an immortal and is going to be immortal until the end, until the second coming. And half of the stories have that person being Mary Magdalene. And the other half have that being John the Greater.
I'm not sure who John the Greater is.
He was the youngest of the apostles. I mean, he would have been, according to the research that I've done, he would have been about 19.
And he was the greater, huh? Who was the lesser?
Yeah, I'm not sure why there's that distinction between John the Greater and John the Lesser. It may have just had to do with timing.
Because back then, everybody was named like 3 names, right? John is one of them, and probably what's another really super common name? Michael. Michael is a very common name.
But John's name in Hebrew would have been Yohanan ben Zavdi. His father's name was Zavdi, which in English is John Zebedee.
John Zebedee. It's kind of fun to say, actually.
It's a fun name.
So we do have a couple of questions from the audience, if you would like. Okay.
Sure.
So let me see. I just want to back up a little bit and see if I have any in the history. I do not see any. So here we go. Do you find your writing to be an emotionally draining and stressful pursuit? And if so, do you have any tips for aspiring writers to manage this?
I do not, actually. I find my writing to be cathartic. If I am having a really, really horrible day, my characters are in for it. If your writing is emotionally draining and stressful, take a step back because it's fighting. And, the words should flow. And you may need to come at it from another angle. I have put work on the shelf because it wasn't working and we're gone to work on something else. And that's always an option. If the words are not flowing on a specific project, work on something else. Take a step away, do something else. Because it may be that I always call it my characters are fighting back. They know their world better than I do sometimes. So
Fair.
I have my outline and they laugh at it. And they go, you only think that's what's going to happen. I have an entire book that it started where I thought it was going to start, and it ended where I thought it was going to end, but there was nothing in the middle that matched what I'd planned out. Because the character said, no, we're going that way. It was like, the difference between Google Maps and MapQuest. They'll take you on 2 different routes.
Wow, the other one is so archaic sounding, right? I think I remember that from back in the day.
Mm-hmm. Years and years and years ago, we used a MapQuest map to drive up to Cornell. My sister was graduating from college.
Mm-hmm.
And the map printout, because it was old enough that this was long enough ago that we didn't have smartphones.
Right.
We had a printout. It said, turn here to get onto campus. Well, you turn here and there's no bridge. That street ended at the gorge.
No, do not drive.
No.
Further.
This is like, that's may just very well be what happened, is that your process and where you think it's going, may be ending at the gorge. You may need to backtrack and try a different route.
Yeah.
And that I find that when the words are starting to get forced, I'm heading the wrong direction. If that makes sense.
Yep.
And hopefully that's useful to you, Jack.
I am sure that all insight is useful. So, what's the quote? I never met a man I couldn't learn something from. So, let's see. Okay, so we have this one from William Joseph Roberts, which is, what is your process? Outline, minimal notes, jump in feet first just to see what happens.
It depends. Sometimes it depends on which way the wind is blowing, honestly, because I am a plantser. I will plot everything out and then we'll see what happens. Like I said, sometimes I have the outline and the characters laugh at me. I usually will not bother with an outline for a short piece. Short stories will just go start to finish and then I'm done. Novels, I usually plan out, and usually there's a lot of world building, and this is the typical size of a series Bible for me.
What is a series Bible? What is that?
Series Bible is all of the details about the world building. The one for Heir to the Firstborn is about twice this size.
Holy smokes.
Because
you do all of that before.
Details. And actually, this is a living document. This grows as I write, because things,
characters will
characters will die, things will happen, the characters will go completely off script, and I'll have to update things.
Because I was having a Dilbert moment of, this is like the pre-novel novel.
David Eddings actually published his. He had his series Bible for the Belgariad, and he published it as the Revan Codex.
Well, it would be awesome to see that kind of, development. I think that would be cool. I mean, I could imagine the publishing of that, easy peasy, right?
Oh yeah, and the Revan Codex was funny because there's a section in there where it's giving all of these details and all of this information, and I had handed it to my husband to read. And it had all these details and all this information. I knew what he'd gotten to the point where it's, and why, and if you don't need to know this, then why are you reading it? Which is actually a line that's in there. And I hear my husband from the other room going, because she told me to.
Apparently they read like game manuals.
They can read like gaming manuals. And I actually, one of my first publishing credits was a gaming manual.
Oh, what was it? I'm curious.
It was the Book of Psionics, which it's out of print now. It was for Skillscape, which is the gaming engine that Chivalry and Sorcery uses.
Oh, okay. psionics, like PSION, like
yes,
using
psychic
your
powers.
brain to, yeah.
Yes, I did all of the theory and all of the descriptions and everything, and I did none of the math.
Fair enough.
Yes, math was not my thing. I can balance my checkbook sometimes.
Sometimes.
When we had checkbooks. Now the computer does it.
So here is one. Here, let's see. What authors did you dislike at first but grew into? Good question.
It's a good question, and it's a funny question, because the first time I picked up Jacqueline Carey's Kushiel's Dart.
Oh, yes, okay. I've never read it, but I've heard, who has not heard of that? The whole series.
I started reading it and put it down. It didn't get me. It didn't grab me. About a year and a half, maybe 2 years later, I picked it up again and could not put it down. And I just fell into this world. And Jacqueline is very fanfic positive. When these books were, when the books were at the height of their popularity back in the late 90s, back in the early 2000s, when these books were really at the height of their popularity, she authorized several play-by-email role-playing games. And I fell into one of those. And play-by-email role-playing games, you had your character, you would write up your, whatever you were doing as part of as your character, as a story, and you would send it in to it was a Yahoo group. And send it to Yahoo group, and then the people you were interacting with would add on to the story.
Okay, yeah, that actually sounds familiar. So
I have actually had the chance to sit down with Jacqueline and tell her that my career is all her fault. Because that is where I learned, that is where I honed my writing chops. And I'm not the only published writer to come out of that game.
Almost certainly not.
Particular game.
So here we have, I saw another one. Let's see. Oh, here we go. What is your favorite genre to write in?
I tend to stick with the romance as the overarching genre. I happen to like my happily ever afters. I think I've only ever written one short story that was not a happily ever after because they died. But that was kind of a, they were happy up to the point where the world ended, which is why the story ended. But I tend to stick with romance, and then I will do anything under romance. I'm fairly well known for my steampunk erotica.
Oh.
I write science fiction. I write high fantasy. I write paranormal romance.
Paranormal, like ghosts?
The one that's currently in the slush over at Circlet Press is BDSM vampires.
Oh,
I'm not reading any of that for you.
Yes, that's probably not appropriate for
the channel. But I've also done elves. Yeah, I had a Hearts Master was all fairy lore and stuff like that. I see somebody asked about ghost erotica. Yes, I did. I did.
Zombies.
I have not done zombies. I don't find zombies sexy.
Well, I mean, they're sort of like these rotting, fleshy, rotting beings that walk around.
I do not find zombies sexy, but I do like Zombies Run.
What's Zombies Run?
Zombies Run. It's a running app. It's a fitness app, and you go out and it's GPS, and as you are running, you get the story. And you can turn off the zombie chases, so you just get the story. And you don't.
I'm trying to wrap my mind around this. Okay, so so you go out, you start running, And as you run, little sections of a story become unlocked and unlocked and unlocked and
Exactly.
unlocked.
And you can't unlock the next part of the story until you finish the mission you're on.
So do you have to actually be outside, or can you do something like get on a treadmill?
You can do it on a treadmill. You could set it up for GPS for distance, or you could set it up for a set pace if you're on a treadmill.
Oh, I hate running, but I have to do something.
I used to say, if you ever saw me running, you needed to run too because something was chasing me. I was not a runner, and then I got into the zombies run, and I will do that. And zombies are not sexy, but I'm really, really kind of in love with the guy who's in the headset, who is your he's your controller. He tells you he has his cameras out there, and he tells you there's zombies and stuff out there, and he's in charge of keeping you safe while you are out running to collect supplies for the township.
So real quick, because this is like the coolest thing, but real quick, for those of you out there, we are doing a drawing for Elizabeth's. Which book have you decided that you want to do the giveaway? Because you have several.
I will happily do the first 3 books on the of the Heir to the Firstborn series.
Wow. I want to enter my own drawing now. And so it's a boo. Yes, I can't do it. Now is the time that you put your name in the comments if you want to be entered to win the first 3 books in this series. And I'm just going to put that up here right now here. So we've got it in the ticker. And I'm putting that here because I want to give everybody a little bit of time to get their name into the comments so that I can get it onto the wheel of spin, the wheel of win, which we spin, which we will do here in just a few minutes. But yeah, I love this. I wonder how difficult it is to make an app like that. It would be cool to write for something like that, especially for you, when you do this serial writing like on your Patreon, right?
Well,
and
a few years ago, I actually auditioned for Choice Games, I think it is. They do like romance games where it's like choose your own adventure.
Yes.
And I auditioned for that, and I didn't. At that point, I didn't make the cut, but it was long before I started doing the serialization. However, with that, when you're doing that, I have a friend who's doing it now. When you word all the possibilities, they're enormous.
That makes sense, and that is enormous, actually. I mean, isn't it? I want to say, like, aren't some of the bigger? I'm just even trying to think of a book. You said 500,000, right?
Yeah. I mean, the average romance novel is, anywhere between 60 and 90,000 words.
Yeah, I was going to say, isn't 80,000?
So like 5 novels. This is, Game of Thrones.
Yes, like all of it together.
All of it.
That is a lot of writing.
It's a lot of words. So if I come up with something that, really needs that kind of treatment, maybe I would do it, but that's a lot of time to invest in something like that.
Okay, so I have a question, if I may, while we're waiting for people to enter their names. I really liked the name Axia when you started reading, and then you got into the names of all of the others who came to follow her. And where do you? I just really liked your names that you had. And so, where do you get your inspiration for the naming of your characters?
A lot of times, it's just okay, what's your name? And
I have a sneeze.
I just make it up.
If I mute suddenly to sneeze, that's what it is. I have a sneeze.
A lot of times it's just, what's this character's name? I don't know. And, I'll just start throwing letters together and see what comes up. Or I've actually recycled names and I didn't realize I was doing it. One of the characters in the Heir to the Firstborn series, his name is Milon, Milon. Okay. And I did not realize when I wrote that character, when I wrote that name in, that is the name of in the Song of Roland. Roland's father's name is Milon, Milon.
Really?
Yes.
I wouldn't even say it like that. I would say Mylon because it only has one L. I would pronounce it wrong.
Well, it's one of those. I've only ever seen it in print. You might be right. I have no idea.
I pronounce everything wrong. I feel like I have strange little ways of pronouncing things because I read much more. I mean, and not only when you read, you read words that are not common parlance in regular speech to people, right? So even if you know what that word is or are very familiar with it, if it's not something that is ever really heard because somebody is truly being grandiloquent with their words when they use things like, oh, your circumlocution is fantabulous, good sir, right? Like,
I
that word.
Victorian slang because I write so much in steampunk and I write so much in historical that some of my absolute favorite is collywobbles.
Collywobbles. I love those words.
And I just found that the Scottish word for vertigo is merligos. Merligos. I fell in love with this word almost immediately because it sounds like vertigo feels.
It almost sounds like it almost sounds merligos. It sounds like if you were to say vertigo backwards, even though it is nothing like vertigo would actually sound like backwards. Mm-hmm. But that's a really weird word.
I just love it. It was I need an odd. Vertigo is a very modern word.
Yes.
And it's using it, and it was actually for Heir the Firstborn. It was first seen in that I just recently wrote. And I'm like, I can't use vertigo because that's going to be too modern. It's going to pull people out of it. I need another word for vertigo. What's another word for vertigo that I could fit into this world? And I found the Scottish dialect for vertigo is merligos. And I have the character going, and it's thinking it's almost onomatopoetic. It sounds like
onomatopoetic. Is that actually a word? Is that actually a word for you using your human power of inventing words?
My English teacher is showing.
So I have a question. Okay, one of the things that I do, and then after this we will do the drawing. So you guys, you have the length of this question to get your name into the comments. I've got everybody, I think, so far that has put their names in. Get your names into the comments. We will enter you for the drawing. My last question, and then we will do the drawing. So I have the dictionary app, the dictionary.com app. And so every day I get the dictionary word of the day. And they are sometimes these crazy little words like now you've got the
onomatopoetic.
No, not that one. The one before, vertigo, the vertigo word.
Oh, merligos.
Yes, merligos. After you said onomatopoetic, I couldn't remember merligos. All these words and the letters. Anyway,
so I have to look at it to tell you how it's spelled.
So how do you, if there is a way, do you have places that you look to find antiquated words when you are writing something, like you were saying, you write Victorian steampunk, mm-hmm. So people would use language that we don't use anymore. And sometimes if you go to thesaurus.com or whatnot, it gives you synonyms, but it doesn't really give you language that is out of use. Mm-hmm. And you'll see that if you say, click a word, and then maybe you look down to where it originated from or something about antiquity. But do you have a place that you would recommend to people that they can go to actually find old vocabulary from other time periods so that they can make their writing, more authentic feeling?
If you're writing historical, the easiest way to do it is to put into your Google search bar Victorian slang or Regency slang or something like that. And you will get those lists because people have compiled them. If you're writing medieval or Renaissance, check out the SCA because they do their research.
Uh-oh, are you in the SCA?
The Society for Creative Anachronism.
Are you in the SCA?
I have not been. I used to be, and my period of study was Carolingian, which is why I know Roland's father's name.
Well, you better give a shout out to whatever your home kingdom is.
Well, I'm not currently in.
But you used to be.
I used to be in the Barony of Bright Hills in the Kingdom of Atlantia. And I still consider myself Bright Hills South, even though I haven't played in quite a long time. We moved to Florida in 2006. And the local barony was not as welcoming as Bright Hills. As Bright Hills was, so we just kind of let our memberships lapse at that point.
Nevertheless, you have good memories from Bright Hills.
Absolutely, so. I love my Bright Hills people. And
all right,
if anybody's watching or anybody's listening, hi, I miss y'all.
All right, so that brings us round to our drawing time, and I've got everybody's names that I saw in the comments. And then plus all of our Patreon patrons. If you are on our Patreon at any level, you automatically get included in the drawings that we do. We do 2 drawings every week, one on this show and then one also on Handmade Home Shopping on Sunday. You get an automatic inclusion in that. So I'm going to put your names onto the wheel of yes, for all 3, not one, but all 3 of the books in this series. And so let me grab my little screen share. May the odds be ever in your favor. Here we are. And we shall spin.
Ooh.
Yes, today's winner, Jack Schweitzer. Congratulations. Yay! You are the winner for today. All right. 3 books for you, and after the show we'll get you guys in contact.
Yes.
And is there anything else that you would like to say to everybody before we bid adieu? It's been a great show. We've ran a little bit over our time, so fun times, right?
We were having fun, so
we were having fun, so it's all good.
Yes.
All right. Well, if there's nothing that you have to say, then I suppose I will say to everybody, today is Friday. Please hit the like and subscribe button. I'll just throw that out there one more time. You can find all of Elizabeth's information. It's been going in the ticker for the vast majority of the show, but it is also in the low bar. It will remain there. You can come back to this at any point in time on the Facebooks or YouTube and click on the descriptors, and the links for following her on Instagram, on Facebook, for shopping on Amazon or on her own website are all there. Please avail yourself of them. If you happen to buy some of her books and read them, leave that review. It helps indie authors more than you can possibly imagine. Leave that review on Amazon or wherever it is.
Yes, and thank you.
Yes. So, and then we will be back with you guys day after tomorrow on Sunday at 4 p.m. Pacific for Handmade Home Shopping. And with that said, I totally said that's when we do our drawing. We do our other drawing on Wednesday for Fay News. Whatever. Oh, it's just all the things. They jumble in my head. Anyway, we will be back, though, on Sunday for Handmade Home Shopping. We have a great lineup that's coming together here for the show. So I hope to see all of you then. And thank you, everybody, for joining us this afternoon. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for having me.